Good morning. Today I want to finish up my overview of the Sefer Yetzirah, the ancient Jewish book of creation, by talking a little bit about the very last verse, verse 7 in chapter 6. And so let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay, this looks good. So, Sefer Yetzirah 6:7. Well, the Hebrew text is a little bit longer, and that means the translation is a little bit longer too. So first we have Rabbi Kaplan's translation. And when Abraham our father, may he rest in peace, looked, saw, understood, probed, engraved, and carved, he was successful in creation, as is written, in the souls that they made in Haran. Immediately there was revealed to him the master of all. May his name be blessed forever. He placed him in his bosom and kissed him on his head. And he called him Abraham, my beloved. He made a covenant with him and with his children after him forever, as is written. And he believed in God, and he considered it to him for righteousness. He made with him a covenant between the 10 fingers of his hands. This is the covenant of the tongue, and between the 10 toes of his feet. This is the covenant of circumcision. And he bound the 22 letters of the Torah to his tongue, and he revealed to him his mystery. He drew them in water. He flamed them with fire. He agitated them with breath. He burned them with the 7 planets. He directed him with the 12 constellations. Okay, and now we have my translation. As an elder, Abraham our father looked and saw and understood and explored and decreed and shaped and manually caused creation, since it is said, and the person that was made in Haran, and at once it became apparent to him, the Lord of all, blessed is his name forever. And it set him in his bosom and kissed him on his head and called Abraham its beloved. And it cut a covenant with him and with his seed until eternity, since it is said he relied on God, and it reckoned it to him as righteousness. And it cut a covenant with him between the 10 fingers of his hands, and it is the covenant of the tongue, and between the 10 fingers of his feet, and this is the covenant of the flesh. And it connected the 22 letters of the instruction to his tongue, and revealed to him their secrets. He settled them in water, made them glow with fire, vibrated them with spirit breath, and ignited them with 7 planets, and conducted them with 12 constellations. All right. Now, there are many that say, based upon this passage, that Abraham composed the Sefer Yetzirah, but that is not possible, in my opinion at least. As I understand it, the alphabet was not in existence in his time, and so he would not have been able to engage in this discussion of creating the universe through the letters. Others believe that was the famous Talmudic rabbi, Rabbi Akiva, who authored the work. And that's possible. But I have another theory as to its authorship. Based upon the grammatical style of the book and other things, it was probably written more or less around the year 200 CE. This was about the time that a great Talmudic scholar, Rav Huna, was born. This is a name that is probably unfamiliar to most of you, but he is nonetheless my best guess as to the true author of the Sefer Yetzirah. And here are some reasons why. Reason 1, it was Rav, the head of the academy at Sura in Babylonia, who said that Bezalel knew how to combine the letters of the Hebrew alphabet in order to create. This is an important topic in the Sefer Yetzirah, and Rav Huna was a student of Rav, and he succeeded Rav as the next head of the academy at Sura. And From the Talmud, we have Rab Judah said in the name of Rav, Bezalel knew how to combine the letters by which the heavens and earth were created. Okay, reason 2, as a head of the ancient academy at Surah, Rav Huna was certainly smart enough and knowledgeable enough to have written the Sefer Yetzirah. Okay, reason 3, there is but a single mention in the Talmud of the book of creation and its use for magical creation. The particular people involved are Hanina, Oshaya, Rabbah, and Zerah. And all of these are people that were involved one way or another with Rav Huna. Oshaya, Zerah, and Rabbah were students of Rav Huna, and Hanina was Oshaya's brother. Thus, all the principal players are one way or another linked to Rav Huna. Rabbah said, if the righteous desired it, they could, by living a life of absolute purity, be creators. For it is written, but your iniquities have distinguished between, etc. Rabbah created a man and sent him to Rabbi Zerah. Rabbi Zerah spoke to him, but received no answer. Thereupon he said unto him, Thou art a creature of the magicians. Return to thy dust. Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Hoshea spent every Sabbath eve in studying the book of creation, by means of which they created a third grown calf and ate it. That is from Tractate Sanhedrin and the Babylonian Talmud. Okay. Reason 4. Rav Huna had enough mystical insight to have written the Sefer Yetzirah. And here is a passage from Genesis Rabbah that indicates that. Lo, these are but parts of his ways, and what blemish of aught is heard of him, but the thunder of his mighty deeds, who can understand? From Job. Rav Huna said, whatever things you see are but parts of the ways of the Holy One. Blessed be he, as it says, lo, these are but parts of his ways, and what blemish of aught is heard of him? What defect is heard of him? But the thunder of his mighty deeds, who can understand? Rav Huna said, when thunder goes forth in its full force, no creature can understand it. It is not written. None understands. But who understands? The intelligent know his hints and his thoughts, said Rav Huna. If you cannot comprehend the essential nature of thunder, can you comprehend the essence of the world? To me, this is a very interesting passage. It shows that Rav Huna understands that God, the source of life, is something incomprehensible. At its highest level, it is an unknown. It can't be comprehended or expressed. All we can see are simply parts of God, parts of his way. Additionally, Rav Huna knows that God nonetheless speaks to us in different ways, through different signs. One of the typical ones in the Torah is through thunder. And Rav Huna hints that perhaps he can understand the voice of thunder. The intelligent know his hints and thoughts. And he says, if you cannot comprehend the essential nature of thunder, can you comprehend the essence of the world? So this suggests some deep mystical understanding that goes beyond just mere intellect. Also, we have this from Ecclesiastes Rabbah, the great rabbinical commentary on Ecclesiastes. Solomon said, for who knows what is good for man in his life, all the days of his vain life, which he spends as a shadow. As a shadow of what? If life is like the shadow cast by a wall, there is substance in it. If like the shadow cast by a date palm, there is substance in it. David came and explained, his days are as a shadow that passes away. Rav Huna said in the name of Rabbi Ha, Life is like a bird which flies past, and its shadow passes with it. Okay, now this is all going back to that famous verse in the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, that verse that says, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." And that is actually a very, very poor translation from the Hebrew, one that people often misunderstand. A more accurate translation is vapor of vapors, all is vapor. And by that, it means that the things we see in life are for the most part lacking in substance. Where the ancient Hebrew says vapor, is like today we might use the expression hot air. And so we might say hot air of hot airs. It's all just a bunch of hot air. And that means it's lacking in real substance. Now the rabbis are commenting on this, and they say that a shadow cast by a wall, there is substance in it. And a shadow cast by a date palm, there is substance in that too. Now, in this instance, the wall and the date palm, they represent things which are relatively permanent. So those things in this world which are reflections of something permanent, lasting, these things which are reflections of the eternal, they do have substance. And what might those things be? Well, perhaps things like love and unity and our family relationships at their core. There are a few things that are reflections of something more enduring, and they have substance. But as Rav Huna is trying to point out, most of the things in life are like the bird which flies past and its shadow passes with it. In other words, most of the things we experience in this world, get involved with in this world, they are reflections of transitory conditions, things that are passing by rather quickly, and they're utterly lacking in substance. However, these are often the things we get most concerned about or most upset about. The traffic jam we get caught in, the inflation we have today, the argument at work. Those are just passing things, reflections of transitory conditions, and they have no substance. And that is not what we should focus our lives upon. So, again, this indicates Rav Huna had a much deeper understanding of life in a way that enters into the mystical. All right, reason number 5 for Rav Huna perhaps being the true author of the Sefer Yetzirah. So, reason 5 is Rav Huna's son was apparently well versed in the defense against the dark arts, as the Harry Potter books might express it. So, from the Talmud, we read this. What is the reference to witchcraft? Rabbi Hista and Rava, son of Rav Huna, were traveling in a boat when a certain non-Jewish matron said to them, "Seat me near you," but they did not seat her. Thereupon she uttered something, a charm, and bound the boat. They uttered something and freed it. She said to them, "What shall I do with you, seeing that you do not cleanse yourselves with a shard, nor kill vermin on your garments, and you do not pull out and eat a vegetable from a bunch which the gardener has tied together?" In other words, what can I do? You are not susceptible to witchcraft. Well, if Rav Huna or rather if the son of Rav Huna and his son's friends know how to defend themselves against witchcraft, then perhaps they learned this sort of thing from Rav Huna himself, again indicating that Rav Huna may have been versed in the type of knowledge that would have allowed him to write the Sefer Yetzirah. And finally, reason 6, the expression life of the worlds as a name for God appears in the Sefer Yetzirah and also appears in Genesis Rabbah in a couple of places in close proximity to Rav Huna's name. So, first, verse 1:9 from the Sefer Yetzirah, 10 declarations of constraint. 1, spirit breath of the living Elohim. Praised and blessed is its name, containing the life of the worlds, voice and breath and words of the Spirit of the Holy. And then we have this passage in Genesis Rabbah. Rav Huna quoted in Bar Kappara's name, let the lying lips be dumb. This means let them be bound, made dumb in silence. Let them be bound, as in the verse, for behold, we were binding sheaves. Let them be made dumb, as you read, or who made a man dumb? While let them be silenced is its literal meaning, which speak talk arrogantly against the righteous, meaning which speak against the will of the righteous one, who is the life of the worlds, matters which he has withheld from his creatures. Okay, so there you have Rav Huna directly using the expression the life of all worlds, the life of the worlds. And this one's a little bit more tangential, but it occurs in discussion in Genesis Rabbah that Rav Huna is involved in. So, the rabbi said, as a camel possesses one mark of uncleanness and one of cleanness, so did Rebekah give birth to one righteous and one wicked son, and followed the man. Said Rabbi Yochanan, because it is improper for a man to walk behind a woman. And Isaac came from coming. He came from a mission to fetch someone. And whither had he gone? To Beer Lahairoi. He had gone to fetch Hagar, the one who had sat by the well, and besought him who is the life of all worlds, saying, look upon my misery. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the evening time. By meditation, prayer is meant, as it says, a prayer of the afflicted when he fainteth, and poureth out his meditation before the Lord. And thus, too, it says, evening and morning, at noonday, when I pray and moan, etc. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming, and Rebekah lifted up her eyes. And when she saw Isaac, she alighted from the camel. Rav Huna said she saw his hand stretched out. So this very last sentence in this portion shows us that Rav Huna was involved in this conversation that referred to the life of all worlds. Okay. So does this mean that I've definitely proven that Rav Huna was the author of the Sefer Yetzirah? Not at all. There's not enough evidence one way or another at this point for anyone to definitively say who the author was, nor exactly when it was written. All we can do is to try and make an educated guess, and my guess is Rav Huna. However, even if he wasn't the author of this text, he was still a very remarkable figure in both history and in rabbinic literature. And as for Abraham, I can certainly believe that he understood the basic nature of the universe and the creative process. Furthermore, the creative process can be summarized as beginning with formless inspiration, water, converting it to form, fire, and then animating it with spirit, breath. And I believe in this last passage of the Sefer Yetzirah, when it talks about doing this sort of thing with water, fire, and breath or air, it doesn't mean doing it physically, lighting a candle, taking a chalice of water, and doing some magical ceremony. It means doing this in consciousness. In your consciousness, you have to combine these things: your right brain, water, your left brain, fire, and interaction, communication between them, air, breath. And when we do this in this way, we can create the world we desire. Additionally, the ending reference to plants and constellations in our passage suggests that one should perhaps make use of astrological timing when creating, or at the very least, that one's creation should be in harmony with the rest of the universe. However, a prerequisite for all of this is righteousness in connection with God, since it is written, he, Abraham, relied on God, and it reckoned it to him as righteousness. Okay. And finally, the late great quantum physicist John Wheeler once speculated that only a single electron exists, that is simply appearing simultaneously at multiple locations in space and time. What if the same thing were true of the 10 Sefirot, the 10 declarations of constraint? What if the principles of spirit, breath, water, and fire, the 3 mother letters, and the 3 spatial axes are all different manifestations of the same thing? Likewise, what if the 6 directions plus center, the 7 double letters, and the 7 visible planets are all the same? And what if the 12 plain letters, the 12 months of the year, and the 12 signs of the zodiac are all manifestations of the same thing? What if the correct theory of physics, of the physics of reality, actually involves just a small number of created things appearing and simultaneously in multiple locations? Let me take out that right there. What if that is the case? Well, if so, then that is something certainly worth thinking about. Perhaps indeed it is the case that, for instance, just a handful of fundamental particles exist, that every electron, that there's just one electron appearing in multiple locations of space-time, one proton appearing in multiple locations of space-time, and one neutron appearing in multiple locations of space-time. And by the way, there you have that triad again. Electron, protons opposite one another, and neutrons is somewhat the combination of the two. But what if you just have one instance of each appearing simultaneously in all sorts of different locations in space and in time? And maybe the same for some other fundamental particles. And what if that is the correct way, the correct theory for physics upon which the rest should be built? Well, that's certainly something to think about. I'll leave you with that, and I'll stop sharing my screen. And this concludes my introduction to the most, or probably the most important verses in the Sefer Yetzirah, and is truly a remarkable document. It introduces this ancient technique of meditation that is part of what is sometimes called the work or the doing of the chariot. And the word chariot in Hebrew, it has the same numerical value as the word Nazir. The Nazir was a person who separated himself from some things that people commonly partake of, such as wine, let his hair grow. Samson was a Nazir. And it's for achieving an added level of holiness. So, this method of meditation as part of the doing of the chariot or the doing of the Nazir, it's described in the Sefer Yetzirah. Different kinds of creation, the doing of creation, the work of creation, that is described in the Sefer Yetzirah. And we have two kinds. We have the kind of creation we do by just making permutations, different arrangements of what's there. And that's the something from something creation. And then we also have in the Sefer Yetzirah the something from nothing creation described. And every time we create something from scratch, every time we have an aha moment, that is how we participate in something from nothing creation. And the Sefer Yetzirah lists the steps there of decreeing, shaping, combining, weighing, and exchanging, being able to create something and then also exchange the background or the context for that thing and the thing still existing. And in that way, these three mother letters also appear, for example, in different contexts as three spatial axes, as other kinds of triads that we encounter in the world. And likewise for the 7 double letters and the 12 plain letters. And we also saw that God or the life of the worlds created the 10 Sefirot, the 10 declarations of constraint that correspond to 10 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, but the remaining 12 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, they corresponded to things which represent personal experiences that we have. And so we are partners in this creation. We complete the creation. We round out, flesh out the rest of the universe after the 10 utterances from the life of the worlds. Okay, so we'll stop at this point. The next video will continue with other aspects of Jewish mysticism as we move into the Zohar and maybe a little bit from the Bahir also. So, again, shalom, go in peace, go in wholeness, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.